Well, let's go ahead and yeah. Why don't we go ahead and begin? My name is Mike Ennis, and I'm going to be introducing our speaker today. And I'm also a founding member of the TMMi North America chapter, which we're very proud of. Our speaker today is actually the vice president of TMMi North America. His name is Mark Summers. Mark has been in the quality assurance business for close to 30 plus years. He works out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as a senior director with Northwest Mutual. But he also has his own consulting firm in which he does QA training. And he's also he has one of the few companies that actually does TMMi certification training. So he's the optimal person to be talking about TMMi and what it is, and most importantly, how you guys can get value out of it in your current jobs, as well as any future jobs that you may aspire to. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn everything over to Mark. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand, or you can just drop them in the chat, and we'll get to the questions probably at the end so that we can make sure we get through all of the material. All right, so at this time, I introduce to some and present to others, Mark Summers.
Thank you, Mike, for that great introduction. Hello, everyone. Just to reiterate what Mike said, we really want to talk about the different usages of the TMMi framework, how it can benefit your organization. And we also want to talk about how it can benefit you personally. So let's get into it. We are going to have a couple questions for you from time to time where you can make a stamp on the screen. So if you go up to the top of your session here, you can do view options, and there's an annotate function. Once the little toolbar pops up, you can choose what kind of stamp or mark you want to make on the page. But from time to time, I'll ask a couple questions and have you guys do that. All right, so let's get started. What are the common usages of the TMMi framework? And I guess I shouldn't assume that everybody is aware of everything that the TMMi framework is. So let me just give a quick overview. The TMMi framework basically emerged from CMMi. So CMMi, if you guys are aware of CMMi, has two practices around testing. Ver and val, verification and validation, and they're kind of ambiguous and vague, not a lot of detail. So basically the TMMi uses the exact same structure of maturity levels, goals, or practices, goal, process areas, goals, and specific practices. Instead of 2 process areas like the CMMi has, there's 16 of them, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. But basically, the TMMi is a test process improvement framework. It's made up of the ideal continuous improvement framework and an assessment framework for assessing capabilities and maturity levels. And we'll dig into that a little bit more as we go. It'll make sense. So the most common ways that TMMi is used, and I apologize for the voice, I got a little bit of a cold or something going on. One common usage is consulting firms use it to drive continuous improvements in an organization. So a really great way for a consulting firm, for example, to come into an organization and determine the strengths and weaknesses of someone's testing capabilities is through using a framework like TMMi to quickly benchmark a company against other similar organizations. So that's one big way that it's used. Now, some of the consulting firms also use it to sell additional services, right? So they'll come in, benchmark you, and then use that to sell other continuous improvements and services. Suppliers. So if you're an organization that maybe provides testing services, or you want to be a supplier to another company for any type of service, was it development or testing or what have you. There are times where companies require you to be a certain CMMI level is more common. So in the United States, if you want to be a software provider for NASA, for example, let me admit a couple people here. They would require you to be a certain CMMI level. Well, yeah, if everybody can mute, that'd be excellent. So what's happening is around the United States and around the world, actually, companies are starting to require TMMi certifications if you want to be a supplier. Talked to one recently that they're looking to achieve level 4 because the company they want to work with requires that they demonstrate that they're capable of delivering. They have the maturity level or capabilities of a level 5. So that's another common usage of the TMMi framework. And as you can guess, since I have it highlighted, test process improvement is the other most common usage of the TMMi framework. So companies that want to figure out how to deliver software faster, with higher quality, more security, and better availability and reliability, they use the TMMi process to continuously improve their testing capability. So assess, make improvements, reassess, continue to make improvements. And this is the one we're going to talk about today. This is the one that is what I consider the real value of this framework. So we're going to dig into this one a little bit more. All right. So why improve testing? So why do we even want to do this? What's the value in spending time and dollars improving testing? And the reasons are software's on everything, right? You know, the amount of software doubles every 24 months that's being run. Software is being run on everything now, right? The Internet of Things, every device you can think of. We've got little tags. I remember at Kohl's Corporate, and this was years ago, just little price tags, that go on a clothing rack or what have you, run software. So easy thing you can think of these days is running software. So, the other reason is, software quality is not getting better. So with the advent of Agile and DevOps and so forth, the thought was quality is going to get better, right? Because if you're doing Agile, you're building in quality from the start. But as the TMMi has done some deeper analysis of this, they're finding out that the defects per 1,000 lines of code is not going down, not significantly. The reliability, availability of software is not improving. So we still need to test. We still need to figure out how to improve our testing and make it more efficient. Time to market. If you're a software company, sorry. 1 second. Give me 1 second, sorry. Sorry about that. Working from home. All right. And then there's reasons around, competitive advantage. So another recent conversation I had with a company was, they want to reach level 5 TMMi maturity level to give them a competitive edge, right? To be able to say, when they're competing against other service providers that, they're more capable. They have a stronger, more mature practice to provide those services for companies. So the direct benefits of TMMi and using the framework are improved product quality, which we just talked a lot about. So how do we measure that? Defect removal efficiency rate, better production performance, so response time, throughput, test productivity, velocity, more frequent deployments, so cycle time, could be your DORA 4 metrics, and probably most important thing of all that, the benefits from TMMi is improved customer satisfaction. So we all work for, most of us probably, for IT departments. And what's the goal of an IT department is to deliver value to the end user, to deliver high quality systems, to enable the end users to do their business, to sell or whatever it is that we're building for them. So customer sat is probably the most important aspect of this. All right, so TMMi recently did a worldwide survey. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that, buzzing around the internet. And so here's what, so they surveyed everyone that's ever had a TMMi assessment. And they surveyed them to say, okay, you got this assessment and you've implemented the findings from the assessment. What benefit did you get from the assessment? So as you can see here, similar to the things we just spoke about, the benefits that they got were improved product quality, test efficiency, which could equate to more frequent deployments, compliance. So if you're in an organization that's regulated, helps with improving compliance. People, so customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction. So for you guys on the call right now, maybe drop a stamp on what's most important to you. Like if you were to implement and take using the TMMi framework a step further, what are the areas that you would like to improve? Okay.
Test efficiency.
Test efficiency, product quality I saw, business alignment I saw, test predictability. We'll get into that. Those level 5 TMMiers become very predictable with their testing prediction. Okay. I think that was Mike. What was that, Mike?
Yeah, I was reading from the chat, quality.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. Let me clear all the drawings and, okay. And now my screen is locked. 1 second, guys.
So Mark, by the time you get the screen, I have a question where I can get this report, Mark. Is it in the website I can get from TMMi website?
Yes, it is. It should be on TMMi America.
Yeah. Okay.
You can also find it on tmmi.org.
Okay.
All right, so let's start talking about the value to you guys. So
Hasta luego, que les vaya bien.
yeah, one thing that all continuous improvement frameworks have in common is some type of gap analysis. So if we look at the most common continuous improvement frameworks out there, we have the Deming model, we have Six Sigma. So we got Deming with the Plan, Do, Check, Act. You've got Six Sigma with the MAIC, and CMMi uses Ideal. And there's one thing that is common across all these frameworks is that initial gap analysis. So TMMi uses Ideal, just like the CMMi. And you can see down here, in this diagnosing phase is where the TMMi uses an assessment. Up here in the Deming, right, somewhere around planning is where they do their measurements and gap analysis. And for Six Sigma, the MAIC, right around measure is where they start doing a gap analysis and measuring processes and, and performing their gap analysis. So this is probably what TMMi is most recognized for is their assessment framework. But again, they're really a test process improvement framework where, they start with an assessment. So why is TMMi so powerful? It is the best, most comprehensive assessment framework in the world for testing in the quality space. And the reason it is amount of detail. So, you can, do an ad hoc assessment on your own at your company where, you're looking for the test plan and you're looking for test design and you're kind of ad hoc just supporting teams. And, you can probably make some decent, okay progress with it. If you really want to transform your organization, this framework has, I think, so 16 process areas. It's probably around 400 practices that you're evaluating part of this test evaluation. And I think there's over close to 900 sub-practices. So the amount of detail and granularity that this framework goes into is outstanding. So if we take one process area, so we said there's 16 of these process areas. So we're looking at test planning right now. And test planning has 5 goals associated with it and probably 15, 20 practices associated with it. So, right, define product risk, identify the risk, analyze those risks, identify features to be tested, define a test approach, for example. So let's just take one of those and look at the level of detail that is behind evaluating that one of 400 practices. So if we look at the next slide here. So when an assessor is assessing that specific practice, so again, that's one of 400, here's the amount of detail that they're going into for each practice. So here's what they're looking for. Here's some of these sub-practices. So we're talking about defining the test approach. So we're going to be looking for type of system. Are there any regulatory standards that have to be considered in this area? Any contractual or customer requirements, level of risk, type of risk, so on and so forth. Here's the examples of evidence that an assessor would be looking at and approaches and so forth. So imagine, having this amount of detail and documentation and information that you could use to evaluate the testing capabilities within your organization, whether you're having an assessor do it, or if you yourself get trained and are doing it on your own. This is the wealth of information, the level of granularity and detail that this type of assessment will get into. So there's a common misconception that TMMi is for only waterfall. So next month, I think, Rex Black will be doing a webinar on using TMMi in Agile DevOps environment. So the organizations that have had assessments done so far, back to that worldwide survey, here's how they break out. So 78% of those assessments were done in Agile environments. 57 of those environments were DevOps, and 90% of them are some sort of waterfall-ish sequential life cycle. So the organizations getting value out of using TMMi as an assessment framework are again, all the modern development or delivery mechanisms are in use. So with your stamps, where are you guys? What kind of SDLCs or delivery solutions you guys use? Got Agile right away. Agile. Some DevOps. No waterfall yet. Okay, so a lot of DevOps, a lot of Agile. So there's a whole spec. There's a whole tailoring guideline from the TMMi on how do you apply these assessments to an Agile framework, right? It's all about equivalencies. You might not have a single test plan document, but you might have the source and the content in a couple of different places. So yeah, very much relevant in a TMMi. Agile is definitely something you guys can make use of. So again, watch out for our next webinar. It sounds like a lot of you are DevOps, so I think next month's webinar on DevOps, I think you'll really enjoy as well. All right, so we talked about TMMi, why it would benefit your organization, right? Very comprehensive evaluation of your testing capabilities, right? How about to you personally? So what value would you guys gain from using TMMi? And let me clear those. Okay. There we go. So really, a lot of folks that have gotten TMMi certified, like TMMi professional, the thing I keep hearing over and over is that it's really transformed their careers. So instead of taking that approach of, ad hoc, continuous improvements within your organization, using this very structured approach has dramatically changed the trajectory of careers for a lot of people. And the reason is if you think back to that slide where it was showing the details, or just one of those specific practices. Imagine the power of that for you as an assessor, you as establishing yourself within your organization as a transformation lead, someone who can be looked to in the organization as the testing guru within the organization. You have a whole blueprint in front of you. So, for example, if you wanted to build a testing life cycle. TMMi is not meant to be a life cycle, but certainly you can look at all the practices, goals, and specific practices, and come up with a testing life cycle. You could go in and help other teams within your organization improve, in your own teams and other teams, their testing capabilities by following this very detailed blueprint that the TMMi framework provides you with. So how do you do it? How do you become that guru? How do you become that transformation lead for your organization? A couple steps here. So first, educate yourself on TMMi framework. So you can take you can read the specs, you could take a class. There's a number of ways you can go about it. There's a number of organizations that you can take classes from and become a TMMi professional. So first step is educate yourself. Assert yourself as that champion. So, and the way you do that is you go and pitch it to your boss, your test manager, your director of quality, that you want to take a pilot. You want to take a subset of applications and take it through a round of continuous improvement and be the champion, be the sponsor for some sort of assessment. Now you can start with a formal assessment by bringing in an actual accredited lead assessor, or you can run an informal assessment on your own, leveraging the framework. So a couple ways to get started with that. Drive the resulting continuous improvement. So out of an assessment comes recommendations and continuous improvements. So, we run an assessment, perform interviews, gather metrics, and the next step is to, identify those candidates for improvement and leverage, the power of those results benchmarked against, thousands of other companies in the US. So a proven model, you can, confidently make test recommendations and drive those continuous improvements within your organization. Measure the impacts. That's kind of the secret sauce here. There's a lot of continuous improvement ideas fall flat because they're not measuring how we improve. So, what can we do to measure things? So we do an assessment, we have all these findings and recommendations, make improvements. So we can measure, probably the holy grail, defect removal efficiency rate. So are those same teams finding defects earlier, preventing production defects? Or, if it's, if your organization's more interested in speed, right? We can measure deployment frequency. We can look at the door 4 metrics or feature cycle time or things like that to measure and show and demonstrate that because of these assessments, because of these continuous improvements, that we've been able to improve speed, deployment frequency, improve the quality. So the key is going to be to identify the appropriate measures to show that your continuous improvements are making an impact on the organization. So you're going to go through a few cycles of that, a few iterations of continuous improvement, and eventually you're going to get promoted, make a ton more money. That's my prediction. Does anybody want more money and a promotion? Oh, see a bunch of checks. Excellent. All right. Let me get rid of that. All right, so a little bit more about TMMi Foundation. So we are a nonprofit organization. We represent for North America, TMMi. So any type of needs, you can go to TMMi America, find out more about our services, how to find assessors and training providers, and just really if you need advice on how to get started. Our mission is to help you do all those things we talked about, improve your software, achieve higher levels of maturity, higher levels of quality, and meet your end user needs. So we want to be your partner in that and help you guys. Other ways to get involved. We do have a free membership, guys. So you can go to our website, sign up to become a member of the TMMi America. It's free. You've signed up. It'll last a year and you get access to our newsletter. There's a premium membership. which is only $25 for a year. You get our newsletter, access to our community, webinars like this, and special events. So we'll have something with our premium members today. We call the after party. So after the webinar, those that are premium members will join kind of a secondary, more deeper discussion on this. You also, by becoming a premium member, you get free 1 hour consultation. So if you're looking to get started with TMMi and you're a premium member, one of our board members will sit down with an hour and give you a free consultation on how to get started. So those are our basic memberships. We also have sponsorships. So if your corporation, like others have done, want to really make a statement that you're committed to quality and you want to be sponsored on our website and have your logo there, and really that shows the rest of the community that your organization is trying to achieve higher levels of quality and supporting an organization like ours. We do have corporate sponsorships available that we can offer as well. That's it. What kind of questions do we have, Mike?
Mark, one of the questions that was in the chat was, how does this align to CMMI?
So I think in that worldwide survey that we referenced earlier, I think, I'm going to take a guess here. So if I'm wrong, I think about 30% of the organizations that have a TMMi assessment are also doing CMMi. So they complement each other. So instead of using those two practices, VAR and VAL, part of a CMMi assessment, so what you do is you basically skip those when you're doing a CMMi assessment, and then use the 16 practices from TMMi, and you're basically leveraging them together. And there's a whole mapping of which TMMi practices and CMMi practices need to be assessed together at the same time. So yeah, they very much work together and very much complement each other.
Hey, Mark Konda here. I have a quick question around, do you have any metrics, Mark, around the success rate for Agile projects where the TMMi got implemented and see the results?
Do I have statistics on the success?
Yeah, on the using TMMi for Agile as well as DevOps.
I don't really have any statistics on success because really what we're measuring, since it is a test process improvement framework,
Right.
we're measuring how did it improve prior to being assessed, and after taking those recommendations and making those continuous improvements. But I've seen things like before an assessment.
Have you taken Bob out yet? Okay.
Before the assessment, you'll see something like maybe a DevOps team was achieving about 78% DRE, and after going through an assessment, for example,
Bob.
it's not uncommon. Mike, could you mute? Not uncommon for to see that jump up after 6 months to like a low 90s. And then, a couple months after that, once you create that continuous improvement culture, you'll see that go into the higher 90s. Same thing for like coverage and traceability and deployment frequency. So we're not measuring the success of the project. What we're measuring is what was the improvement made, right? Like how much better did we get at delivering, software? And that's our real measure, is that, these teams deliver faster, higher quality, more frequently, with better performance. That's what we're after. Does that help, Conda?
Yeah, that helps, Mark. And there is a follow-up question on the same, because when we talk about Agile as well as DevOps, it's a lean on the documentation process. Okay, that was actually one of the challenge I have right now. Okay, what I seen in my current projects. Okay, when you're starting out, hey, TMMi, make sure these are the key artifacts we need to capture so that we can validate the quality wise, right? But the question come back to us is, okay, oh, it's a too much, guys. You are asking me to develop all these, test artifacts. It is something we can simplify it. I know I saw the agile approach, how it works in the TMMi. Mark, is something else you have any additional inputs on that?
Yeah, kind of. We can talk about that a lot more offline. I can give you ideas, but for the group here, in general, it's about equivalencies. So, for example, TMMi has practices around test estimation, right? And in Waterfall, you would have a separate estimate for testing, separate estimate for development, or configuration management, you name it. Your estimates are typically all broken down. How do we estimate in Agile world in DevOps? Certainly are providing a separate testing estimate, but what would the equivalent of that be? So as an assessor, I'm going to go and I'm going to attend their planning ceremony. And what I'm looking for, instead of a separate test estimation, I'm sitting in their planning session and maybe doing planning poker. And I'm making sure that the testers invited. We have had scenarios where the testers weren't part of the estimation at all, a part of the planning poker. So first I'm looking, okay, this testing have a seat at the table. Are they one of the three amigos, right? Do they have a voice? And are they participating? So, are they providing, their story points, estimate, to the moderator of the planning poker? So you might have something that seems like a simple feature, but you as the tester know, this is going to be a complicated regression, right? Or it's going to need performance testing. So right there, that takes from a 2-point story to a 15-point story. So, so you're looking for equivalencies. And TMMi has a whole guideline, a document on what those equivalencies are, how to apply it. Takes a little practice, definitely need an experienced assessor first couple of times while going through that, adopting it to Agile. But again, very much works. And I think you might have been on when I mentioned earlier that we actually have TMMi for DevOps coming up as a webinar next month that you'll be interested in.
Yeah, definitely, Mark. I looking forward for that. Yeah.
Thanks for the question. It's kind of anything else? Any other questions about how this is really valuable to your organization or to you personally? Anything else in chat, Mike? If you're talking, Mike, you might be on mute.
Well, Mark, here's a personal question for me. How great is it to get a cold and not have to freak out about it being COVID?
That's a great question, Mike. What's even better is I've recently gone back to the office. So you know how great it is not to have your dogs barking every time someone comes to the door, like today. Yeah, I should have done this from the office today.
You do it for the entire COVID period from home, nothing happens, right? You get out of quarantine, you do it from home, and look what happens. The dog goes nuts.
All right. How about one more question for the group then? How many of you, and you can do a little stamp on the screen here, how many of you are interested in learning more about TMMi or think that you might want to try it in your organization? One, two, all right. Three. Oh, here we go. All right, well, good. For those that are interested in learning more, again, TMMiamerica.org. You can go there to learn more and find providers and folks that can work with you guys to learn more about it and see how to apply it within your organization. If you want to become a premium member, you can get a free actual consultation. So that might be something that you guys should consider. All right, thank you, everybody. Hopefully this was informative and it's motivated you to take a closer look at this. See y'all later. For those that are premium members and you want to join the session, we'll see you over on the other side.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Good job, Mark.
Thank you.